Are you ready to explore soul-centered sustainable living in today's reality? I'm Leslie Rangel, an Emmy-nominated Latina TV journalist turned emotional health and spiritual movement coach. Join me on the News Yogi, where we'll have conversations celebrating authenticity in a world that demands perfect curation. So come as you are, familia, not who you're expected to be. New episodes every Monday on your favorite platform. Hey familia, welcome to Voice Notes with Leslie. I am so excited for this first style of the podcast. We are theming this month around rest. So this first voice note focuses on rest, but also making it real for us. Especially after Jeff's conversation last week, I just felt so inspired and reminded about the importance of rest. So I wanted to check in with y'all, see how everybody's doing, but not that just like, okay, I'm fine, but how are you really doing? I say this to my friends a lot because we're so conditioned, especially in our culture, like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine, thanks. And then you just move on. But I want to know how you're really doing, honestly. And again, I'm reminded of this because of the conversation with Jeff. You can look like everything is perfect, like you're traveling in Barbados and working with Nat Geo, and you're an author and you're doing all of these in a perfect little curation on social media. But I loved when I talked to Jeff, he was real. He was like, in this moment, I'm exhausted. How many times have you felt exhausted and you've not said that, whether it was a close friend or maybe a trusted coworker that, you have good vibes with? Just thinking about that for a second and how hard it is to rest, especially when it feels like life goes non-stop, and especially when the world feels heavy. So I want to acknowledge that for a little bit as well, that at the time of this recording, there's a lot of fear happening in my community. There's a lot of fear happening in our community in general, especially those of us who come from immigrant families, especially folks who have mixed status families. I want to be clear that what is happening is important to acknowledge because it can be very scary. And there's a lot of uncertainty with what's happening politically, with what's happening around us, the lack of due process that is happening, and the people that are being targeted and the people that are being taken away. And with that, it might be challenging to think, how do I rest, Leslie? Like, must be nice, must be a luxury. And yes, it is a privilege and it is a luxury to rest, because we know that, especially for me, I'm a first generation daughter of immigrants. My parents did not have that luxury to rest. They had no other option than to keep going because we were living in survival mode. And I also want to acknowledge the fact that we can also choose to rest. In fact, rest is the only way we get through times like this. Rest is how we recharge. Rest is how we reconvene. Rest is how we regroup, how we replan. Rest is pivotal. I heard from a yoga teacher that I had, and her work centers a lot around social justice and social justice movements. And she said, rest is resistance. And I've said this too now for a few years, especially in class, but rest is resistance from all of the systems that lead you to believe that you are not worthy of peace and you are not worthy of joy. So I just want to invite that conversation in, and a reminder that yes, rest is a luxury, but rest is also protection. And if there's anything that I've learned in the past decade, more than decade, in my yoga studies, my self-healing journey, my journey as a coach, is that two things can be true at once. So I invite you to reframe your thinking of rest being a luxury or only a luxury, and reminding yourself that rest is protection. Again, it's how we stay grounded. It's how we keep our cups filled. No one person, no one human can change an entire world, an entire circumstance. And it's important to check in with yourself, check in to see how you're resting, and remind yourself what are the actionable things that you can do as we continue in this journey for the kind of world that you would like to see. For me right now, it's reminding people to rest, and it's also through journalism and writing stories and sharing the truth during a time when those two things can be very challenging. So now let's pivot a little bit to Jeff's story. Jeff was so candid and so open with what he had going on, right? And I learned that, again, two things can be true at once. Even when your life looks dreamy on the outside, right? You're traveling everywhere, you're in crystal clear blue water, you're scuba diving, you're doing all the things, it's still important to find rest. I also learned that setting boundaries along with that rest is so important, because if we say yes to many, many things, and I've gotten caught in this before, but if we say yes to many, many, many things, then you're essentially saying no to yourself. You're saying, no, you can't rest. You have to keep going. You're not setting boundaries, and you're not filling your cup. The other part that I really loved that Jeff talked a lot about was connecting with that inner child. When we think about rest and what we would do as children, regardless of, how we grew up, different circumstances. I mean, I was like a mom 2.0 to my sisters, and it was just things that had to be done. But I do remember as a child playing a lot, tapping into the inner child, coloring, playing, pretend. My husband, I'm so excited for him because he just got a Nintendo Switch 2. And I know this year, those are all the rage, especially as they just came out. And he was a little nervous, like, oh, I don't know, it's a big investment. But I encouraged him. I was like, get that console, because inside there's a little boy, a little you, who's so excited that maybe when he was little, his dad couldn't afford it, right? But now we get that privilege. We get to tap into that little version of us. And it doesn't have to be investing in an expensive console. It could be something as simple as remind yourself what you like to do when you were a kid. Rest doesn't mean sit on the couch and just veg out, right? Although if that's what you want to do, that's cool. But rest can also mean take a break from work. Rest can mean hop on a video game. Rest can mean go dance, go for a walk, go jump in puddles. I love when Jeff said that he was sharing a story about how he encouraged his friends, let's just go jump in a puddle. And they were like, dude, why haven't we done this before? And it was just such a good reminder to tap back into being, a little kid. So if you think about it, all these little things are what we tend to lose, especially when we're in the grind. And especially for those of us who are the change makers that are seeing the world around us and are saying, hey, wait a minute, this is not the kind of world we want to live in. We see something better. We see something more beautiful, more just. And it can be hard, especially again, when there's so much heaviness and it feels like you cannot take a break. But again, a reminder, rest is protection. Trust me, I've been there. I know what it's like. Not only at this point in time do I have to constantly check in with myself in terms of rest, but in other areas of my life, in other time periods of my life, I have felt this need to keep going, because if I don't do it, then who else is going to do the work? And yeah, that can be a load to carry. And also, if you keep going and going and going and going until depletion, then there really will be nobody to do the type of work that you're doing. So just a reminder that it takes time and practice to be able to relearn what we were raised to believe before, which again, that rest is a luxury. So again, rest is protection. I can't say that enough. So you might be wondering, okay, exactly how can I even apply this? Hey, familia, are you taking notes? I sure hope so. Okay, so a quick pause to ask a huge favor. Make sure you're subscribed to this podcast and YouTube channel. It ensures you don't miss any episodes and gets this content in front of more people. So please just take a second, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate your support. All right, now let's jump back into the conversation. The truth is, I grew up around people who could not afford to rest, who were living in survival mode, and you just had to keep going, keep your head up, and work hard. But again, I'm here to remind you, rest is so pivotal, especially for the work that change makers are doing. So it takes time and it takes practice, but there are ways to relearn those patterns and remind yourself that you can't pour from an empty cup. So here are a few things that I'm learning and I'm doing now. So leave a text unread until tomorrow. I actually just got a text and it's related to a different project that I'm working on, and I can feel the energy that it's going to take to address it. And I'm going to choose to pause. I don't know if I can wait for tomorrow on that one. So there, you caught me in real time, not entirely resting. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait a couple hours until I'm a little more regulated, until I've gotten some other things taken care of, and then I'm going to choose to go to that text. Another thing that I'm learning and practicing is being able to just do nothing. This summer, I'm taking a trip to Colombia, and my first inclination was, I'm going to work the whole time there and I'll be able to work remote because my company allows me to work remote and they're really understanding, and I'm just going to work while I'm there. And luckily, one of my bosses says, now, Leslie, you need to take some time to rest. And it was a good reminder, a good reflection that I need to slow way down, take a pause, take a break. Another one that I'm working on, I'm not completely 100% comfortable, but that's part of the work, right? The work is in the uncomfort, is saying that's not going to work for me right now, and not explaining why, not sharing a why, but just saying, no, thank you, I can't do it. No is a complete sentence, reminding myself that not everything needs an explanation. The other thing that I'm really working through right now is letting yourself feel before you hop in and try to fix everything. That is really challenging for me. And so it's really a hard practice right now, but I'm working through it, especially when the world feels so heavy. It feels like I want to hop in and help everybody and fix everything and try to do everything I can. But the reality is, again, we go back to what I said earlier in this episode, that not one human can change everybody's circumstance. So it's important to focus on what you can do. And sometimes that means taking a step back, evaluating, how am I feeling? Taking a moment to rest and feel your emotions. And then once you can regroup, then you can go out and do things in a more intentional way. So those are a few things that I'm working through. We're keeping it real. I'm working through them right now in terms of this conversation around rest. So I'd like to invite you in to really think about, what does rest look like for you? Not feeling guilty, but just allowing yourself to rest, to take a breath, to come up for air. And yes, it is a challenging time to be doing life. What's one tiny way that maybe you can offer yourself a little bit more softness? Maybe text a loved one that you know maybe is one of those people who has a hard time resting, and let them know you're there. Maybe let them know that you are there to be able to listen, maybe have some cafecito or a matcha. I'm a matcha girly myself, but just take some time to pause and connect and rest. Tap into that little kid inside of you who maybe just needs a little nap, or maybe just needs to sit and color or play or reconnect with some of those things that we forget light us up, especially when we're in this messiness of life and grind. So I invite you to do that if it feels right for you. And remember, again, rest is protection. So if you're like, yes, Leslie, that all sounds really great, but how do I actually do this? Well, I got you. Next week's episode is going to be a little rest ritual. I got you. It's going to be short, sweet, easy, something simple you can do. No huge thing that you need to do, but that's coming in next week's episode. So for now, take a few moments, maybe even jot down some thoughts in your journal that might have come up from this little voice note that I'm leaving for you. And remember, rest is resistance to all of the systems out there that have made us falsely believe that we are not worthy of joy, ease, and peace. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this entire episode. For that, my heart is filled with gratitude. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Spread the word to your friends and fam, whoever may be interested in this topic. This space is for you, familia. If you know someone who'd be a perfect guest, yes, including you, or you have a topic you'd like to see covered in future episodes, visit thenewsyogi.com/podcast. See you next week on The News Yogi.